There's a couple of our peeps rolling in here.
Whoa.
Hi there. Hi.
We were just here anyway, so might as well join in for the fun.
1, 2, 3.
All right, welcome everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get started. If we have not met before, my name is Laura Briggs. I have been freelancing. This is year number 11. I got started because my husband was active duty in the Navy and we moved 11 times in 13 years. So I needed a career that was going to pick up and follow me. So I literally Googled how to become a freelance writer. My business kind of grew a lot faster than I expected. And I used to be a middle school teacher. So a lot of my teacher colleagues were asking me, how did you do this? How did you escape the classroom and, build something new? And so I started creating resources for freelancers too. So I have over 100 episodes of a podcast with free advice about freelancing, and I've written 5 books, and still today I work with freelancers. I coach a lot of people who have gotten sort of that early traction in their business and are looking to take it to the next level to really make it their full-time job. So what we're going to talk about today are I'm going to break it down into different kinds of side hustles, because freelancing is definitely not the only thing you could do. But I'm going to talk about why I think it's one of the best choices for people to consider when they're launching, why now is the right time, and then some things to consider before starting, what it looks like, the kind of things you need to do, what it is to actually have a side hustle, especially in that first stage. I stayed with my side hustle for 13 months while holding down my day job before deciding to go full time. And I find that to be pretty common for a lot of people. I wanted to see a year's worth of revenue. Could I sustain this? Are there slow months? Is this something that I'm going to have enough clients to make up for things like loss and health insurance? So I kind of break side hustles down into 4 different categories. There's like your in-person service ones, which requires you to physically go and do some things like Uber, Instacart, DoorDash. Like those are out there. Many people know what they are. Very little barriers to entry. What I'm going to focus on a lot today is in the online service category, which is things like proofreading, being a virtual assistant, writing, graphic design, web design, ad managers, all these kinds of things. There's also really viable side hustles doing physical products. So like you're making something, you're producing it, you're selling to people, you're screen printing on t-shirts, you're, making jewelry, and, that could be something you sell at the farmer's market, you sell it online. It could be you're making soap. There's so many different options. And then there's your digital products, which is like you're starting a blog or you're trying to become an influencer. So you're looking at things like growing to get ad views and sponsorships, selling printable items, online courses. Like one of my side hustles is selling all of my old lesson plans for my teaching days on Teachers Pay Teachers. And 11 years later, that still makes several $100s a month. So any digital item that doesn't require you to physically do anything would fit into that. So let's talk about the pros and cons of these different kinds of side hustles. So in person, easy to start, right? It's fast cash. You're not waiting a long time for someone to pay an invoice or to get proof of concept in a physical product. It's a pro and a con that anyone can do it. Like you could start driving for Uber tomorrow. However, that means anyone could start driving. Most people could start driving for Uber tomorrow. So sometimes that drives the supply up so high where it's hard to make the amount of money you want. With things like delivering groceries or whatever, of course, you're putting wear and tear on your vehicle. And, one of the things I've heard a lot of people in this position complain about is that sometimes they're tipped really well and sometimes they're not tipped so well, or people try to take advantage of them. So an online service, like a freelance service, limited startup funds needed. Like I always tell people, if you have a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection, that's really all you truly need to get started as a freelancer. And most people already have that. One of the biggest benefits is that you can set your own rates, like rather than being an employee where your boss is telling you this is the hourly range or this is the salary we can afford. You're saying this is what I'm charging for my services. Another benefit is that it's extremely flexible. I run a nonprofit called Operation Freelance, where we teach other military spouses how to break into freelancing. And the big reason we promote freelancing with military spouses is because they're in other time zones in other countries. They can work from 2 to 4 p.m., but not any other time. It's really hard to get a side hustle or even a part-time job that fits that need for flexibility, but freelancing allows that. Downside, it can take some time to get that first client and to really get your feet kind of into it. And then there's some business, you're running a business. So I think that's a lot of times something we don't necessarily have skills as, coming from the employee world, is like everything it takes to set up your business and do the accounting and act like a CEO, even though you may be brand new to this. So physical product can have some big payoffs, but you need the skills to prototype, do market research. You often need startup funds, much more substantial than an in-person service or online service business. It can take years for you to get to that point where you have a viable product or where you're getting traction. And it's hard if you don't have an audience. So it's hard to sell until you have lots of buy-in. Digital products are easy to create, so that's like very beneficial for them, but it takes a lot of time to build an audience to sell to, and it requires some investment in tools. So like, I have an audience of freelancers. It took me a long time to get those people to subscribe to my email newsletter and to determine the right email newsletter strategy to nurture them into buying courses and online coaching sessions. And then of course, it just requires a lot of upkeep, like posting on social or like doing a podcast, doing a video show, something to engage them. So when someone's thinking about starting a side hustle and they don't really know where to start, if they have any skills at all that I think could work as a freelancer, I recommend that as a starting place, because the barrier to entry is so low and because it's so flexible, and whatever you learn from freelancing can be applied to any of these other business models too. You're going to learn sales and negotiation skills, marketing, accounting, all these things that you can just kind of carry over if you ever start another business. So the way that I define freelancing is working for multiple clients at one time as a contractor, not an employee. I know freelancers who have 2 clients and they consider that full time. I've had as many as 11 at once. It just depends on the size of project you're working on. You're running your own business and getting your own clients. And that's very important, because sometimes I talk to freelancers who expect the clients to like fall from the sky into their lap, and it doesn't work like that. I wish that it did. One of the other things to keep in mind is that you'll be paying your own taxes. So be organized from the beginning. And you'll also be setting your own rates, which is something that causes a lot of fear in people because they don't know necessarily what to charge. So I'll give you a little background on how, like, what my trajectory looked like as a freelancer. I started in the summer of 2012 and I went full time that very next summer. My business scaled very quickly to be an annual 6-figure business, which I was not expecting. I thought this was really going to be a side hustle. My husband was in a transition point with his career in the Navy, and I started doing it to pick up extra cash and to see if this was something that was viable. But I really saw the potential in it and scaling it. And I've done a lot of different services. Most of them are as a freelance writer, but I also, like my biggest client, I'm basically their fractional chief marketing officer. I've done project management and virtual assistant work too. So one of the reasons this is so important now is because so many people, like we were talking about this before the session started, COVID, everyone had extra time, was also very aware that their job may be tenuous. A lot of big tech companies are doing mass layoffs right now. There's the Great Resignation. There's people who are quiet quitting. So there's like all these things happening in the traditional marketplace, where even if you're not thinking about quitting your day job, you probably have something in the back of your mind telling you to diversify your income sources. My goal is that I never want any loss in my business to take me to zero. So I never want to have just one client or just one thing that I do, because if I lose that, then everything goes. So even as a full-time employee, that's something beneficial for you to think of as well, so that if something were to happen in your job that was outside of your control, that you had at least something, a little, either the money saved from your side hustle, or you could scale up your side hustle. So if you're feeling that like, I need something more, you're not alone. A lot of people are thinking about this right now and exploring their options. So what to think about before starting a side hustle, because there's so many options. And it's also very easy to crowdsource this, to be like, hey, like go post on Facebook, hey, everyone tell me what your side hustle is. You'll get so many different answers and it'll just confuse you. So start with you. Does this interest me? Is this something I have some level of interest in? I like to think of it as, if I weren't going to get paid at all, is this something I would still explore as a hobby? Is this something I would still try to learn about just because it's interesting? Does it fit into my schedule, or does it, does it require something that has very specific hours? So like, for example, let's say you wanted to sell life insurance policies as a side hustle. You could do that, but you'd probably have to do it between like 6 and 8 p.m. to try to hit people when they're at home. So you'd be going door to door when you're off your day job. Is that something you want to do? Weigh those things in. Like, does this fit into my schedule? Do I have the skills to make this work, or am I willing to learn them? So some things like, proofreading or being a virtual assistant don't have a huge barrier to entry, but I couldn't just decide to be a graphic designer tomorrow because I don't have the skills to become a graphic designer, and I would have to invest a lot of time because I don't have any background in that. But maybe you have those skills or something like that from your day job. How much money do I need to start is another thing to consider. Ideally, you want that number to be relatively low. You do have to take risks as an entrepreneur, even launching something smaller like a side hustle, but be realistic. Like, you don't need everything. One of the ones that I get asked about a lot with freelancers is, oh, I need a website. I need to go hire, I need a domain. I need the hosting. I need to go hire a designer for $3,000 to make a website. And I'm always like, nope, we don't need to do that until you are in this for several months and you have money coming in to fund something like that. Make it work, bootstrap it as long as you can with as little as possible, and you'll thank yourself for that. And then finally, how will I hold myself accountable? Because lots of people want to start a business and a side hustle, but there's a mental game to it of like psyching yourself up to be able to do it, and also being realistic with it. Like, if you say I have 10 hours a week in my schedule, how am I going to hold myself accountable in those 10 hours to make sure I'm actually working on this business? Freelancing is a great choice as a side hustle because it offers freedom. It's totally something you could do alongside your day job. When I worked full-time and was freelancing on the side, I would take calls from clients over lunch, or I would specifically pitch. I was on the East Coast at the time, so I would pitch West Coast clients so I could take the calls when I got off at 5 o'clock and it was still 2 o'clock their time. So there's a lot of freedom and flexibility, and you can kind of make it work with your day job. With it being flexible, you can do it as much or as little as you want. It could be 2 hours a week. It could be 40 plus hours a week. It's very hard to find another side hustle that you have so much individual control over dialing up and dialing down. It's so easy to start. There's very little capital needed. You might need some, but it's not like your business is going to suffer. I've met plenty of freelancers who have started with nothing and just really worked their way up. It's also deadline based. And what I mean by that is a lot of jobs are like, we need you to be online between 8:30 and 5 p.m. You must answer Slack during this time. You must answer emails. Some people don't have an environment where they can take phone calls at home because they have kids. Freelancing is deadline based. Your clients don't care if you do it at 2 in the morning or 10 at night, as long as you meet the deadline. So you can look at your schedule and say, this is going to work or it's not for me. And like I mentioned, it can be scaled up or down as needed. There's been times in my business for a year and a half, I worked as a full-time employee as a marketing director. And so I dialed my business down. And when I left that job, I dialed it back up, and I really like having that ability. So let's talk quickly about, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant, but this is important to recognize. What is the difference between an employee and an independent contractor? Freelancers work as independent contractors. So an employee this is like a very general definition, and you can check the IRS rules to confirm it. But in general, employees, the company controls your work. They control your work environment, your schedule, and your equipment. And then they pay taxes from your paycheck. So they are taking your tax contribution, hopefully the right amount, out of your paycheck. And then at the end of the year, you get a W-2 that tells you how much you earned, how much was sent to state of Illinois and federal taxes and Medicare and Social Security, all those good things. An independent contractor works on their own schedule and the time of their choosing. They are a self-employed person and they do not get benefits. So this means like all the stuff that employees traditionally get, workplace protections like labor rules and things like that, workers' comp, health insurance, dental insurance. You are not going to get that as an independent contractor. Your arrangement with your client is, I am providing X services. You are paying X flat fee, X retainer, or X hourly rate to me, and then I'm responsible for paying my taxes out of the earnings that I make. At the end of the year, your clients should send you a 1099, and then you, like, when they send the 1099, they send one to the IRS and they send one to you. So when you file your taxes, you want to make sure you have all the right amounts. And any client, I think it's over six, if any client who pays you more than $600,
It's 600.
should send you a 1099 And if they don't, report that income anyways, like put that in, you know, I didn't get a 1099 for this, but I should have. But that can also, like, one of the things that tripped me up when I got started is all my clients paid me through PayPal. And then PayPal would 1099 me and the client would also 1099 me. This is a long way of saying get a good CPA. Who can tell you what, like, just organize it for you so you don't get double taxed, because that did happen to me, because I didn't realize that, like, the IRS saw that as two different things of the same money. They saw it as different.
I worked for a nonprofit and we would actually send the 1099s
Yeah.
out to the folks that we
Yeah,
hired.
yeah.
So even though they were, I
It's
guess,
weird.
anyway, yeah, so it can, as long as the IRS gets it, you know, like.
Yeah, keep good records yourself, like of any side hustle you get. And what I didn't do was, like, that first year I started in June and I really had no system. And so when it came time to give my CPA stuff the next year, I kicked myself for not logging it as it came in, not having an accounting software, not categorizing my expenses, because that's another thing as an independent contractor. A lot, like, the tools that you are using to do your job, like whatever percentage of your internet is for business is tax deductible, whatever percentage of your mortgage or rent your home office is tax deductible. There's, like, any course or book I buy or a business coach I hire, whatever, all of those things have to be tracked so that we can make sure we maximize tax savings. So I will share a resource with you at the end of this. It is a PDF of the top 24 most profitable freelance side hustles. And it goes through the skills you need, the average hourly rate beginners charge, or kind of how they think about charging, and then what those kinds of freelancers do. But I'll talk to you kind of briefly about popular ones for people to start today: freelance writing, copy editing, virtual assistants, which is basically like an admin who's online. Virtual assistants also include people like social media managers, online business managers, project managers, things like that. Graphic design, people who do marketing, like it could be anything. Like, you could be super specific, like I do PPC ads, or maybe you just do general marketing services. Social media, web design, web development, IT consulting. There's even, like, the job board site that one of them that I use that I'll share with you at the end, even has a whole category for, like, legal services. So there's all kinds of stuff, customer service, things that are out there that you could potentially do. So what are the most important skills to have if you're going to start a side hustle as a freelancer? Good communication. This is number one. My freelance friends and I joke that 50% of the reason we're in business is because other freelancers cannot meet deadlines and do not communicate. And that is very frustrating for clients. So just being a good communicator and saying, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm not doing, this is when I'll turn it in. Oops, I've had life intervene. This is going to delay my deadline. Here's what that looks like for you. Those things go a long way. You have to be willing to put yourself out there and hear no, or even worse, get no response so many times, which can be exhausting, but is valuable as a business person of any type. Meeting deadlines is key. 90% of the time, you are setting the deadline for your own work. So just meet it. You know, I'm a very deadline driven person, and I think that's why I like freelancing so much. Like, I may procrastinate on my personal stuff, but if I told someone I'm going to have it on Tuesday, the embarrassment of not having it to them on Tuesday will motivate me on Tuesday morning to actually get it done. So ability to think strategically, both about your business and someone else's business. One of the most valuable skills you could have as a freelancer is you're working with other entrepreneurs, nonprofits, small business owners, even major corporations. The more you can think about how what you're doing is helping them achieve their business goals, the more likely they are to want to continue working with you and expand that opportunity. And then one that can sometimes be hard is the ability to get and intake feedback. You will get feedback from clients. Sometimes that feedback is legitimate and it's making you a better XYZ service provider. Other times it's this line, right? Like, I've had to go toe to toe with some of my clients and say, you know, actually there's a reason why that is put in there. I do not, like, one of my clients wanted to share every blog I wrote with him with his law school buddy. And I was like, that is helping neither one of you on Google to be posting the exact same material, but being able to walk that line of when someone's telling you good advice versus when you actually need to stand up for yourself is important. So what is what does a day in the life of a freelancer look like? Marketing to clients, pitching, doing calls, writing posts, asking for referrals, blogging, making a video, reaching out to a client who contacted you 6 months ago, but never signed a contract. Like marketing is a huge, huge part of what we do as freelancers. I like to call it the 80-20 rule. When you launch your business, 80% of your time is spent marketing, 20% doing admin and things for clients. Your goal is to flip that so that 80% of your time is doing client work and 20% is on the admin and the marketing side. So working on client projects, of course, that's a big part of every day of a freelancer, getting things done, doing research, refining things, incorporating feedback. And then there's the admin work, which is like invoicing, mapping out your schedule, making sure you didn't double book yourself on a day, handling all of those, like making sure your accounting software is capturing everything that's coming in, or you're manually entering checks if you still get it, stuff like that. So what do you need? What do you actually need to start freelancing? You need some type of a skill set, some skill set that you either already have from your past or one that you are learning or have learned recently. You need a pitch, which is basically the reason why a client should hire you. And then you need work samples or work experience or testimonials, some combination. For people like writers, social media managers, graphic designers, you need to have work samples. And people will always ask me like, well, I don't have any work samples because I haven't had my first client. Make them up. I made up 3 blog posts and I used those to get all of my first couple of clients. I didn't tell them the work was published anywhere. So I didn't claim anything about it that was untrue, but I just said, here's a sample of my style and the way that I write, see if it's a good fit for you. And then you need a marketing plan. How are you actually going to reach clients? Because this is just such a huge part of what you have to do. So step one, if you're like, I know I want to do freelancing, but I have no idea like what type of thing I want to do, start by evaluating your skills. I do a resume exercise with the military spouses in Operation Freelance because all of them are like, I have no skills. My resume has gaps all over the place. I don't have enough experience. I don't, they have a big confidence issue because of all the challenges they face. So go through your actual resume and look at skills you have that could transfer over. And I'm going to show you an example from one of our Operation Freelance graduates. Also decide what you like to do, already know how to do, or could learn quickly. So this is where like I take out the resume and I just start a Google Doc of like everything that's on my resume, but also things that I know how to do. So like, even though it wouldn't be my first choice, I'm like, I could tutor kids, like I could tutor online, I could teach people English. I have some teaching skills in my background. So I just add everything to this list of a brain dump. And then you'll start to see like what trends emerge for you, things that really like appeal to you as something you'd like to do. So here's an example on the left. This is from one of my, this is a resume from a military spouse who'd had some admin positions. So like on the left were the skills that she had. So like she was a program manager for multiple managers. So we can reframe these things into stuff like extensive project management skills, capable of tracking multiple projects at one time. That's literally a huge part of being a freelancer. So working in a high stress environment, working with many different types of people from different backgrounds, that high stress environment and prioritizing multiple demands is like deadline driven. I don't miss a deadline, these kinds of things. So designing processes to complete projects ahead of or on schedule, all of the skills you have like a lot of them may transfer over to being a freelancer and may become part of your pitch. And that's why this is such a helpful exercise to do. So the next step after you've looked at your skills is to decide your new goal. And it may be money or it may be hours. Maybe like you're feeling like bored at your job, or you're like, I want to do something creative. So it doesn't necessarily have to be money driven, although that is a great way to hold yourself accountable and be like, hey, I want an extra $500 or $1,000 a month. It's really easy to track if you're doing the work to get to that goal. But it might just be like, I want to spend 5 hours a week, like doing proofreading or creating logos or doing something that's just maybe it's part of your day job, or maybe it's not at all. And that's why you're looking into it as a side hustle. It could also be a certain type or number of clients. And that may change over time too, what your goal is, but start with one goal of like something that feels reasonable, not like, I want to replace my day job income in 2 months. Like that is just going to stress you out and you're never going to start. So choose something like, I want to get my first client in 30 days. I want to make my first $300. Those are things that are totally doable, and then you can adjust your goal. So I'll talk about this briefly, but this is again where you want to get business advice, like from the lovely folks that are in the room here with me, can help with these kinds of things. If you're just like, man, I just need to think through like pros and cons of starting my business. So if you just start freelancing tomorrow, by definition, you're a sole proprietor because you haven't done anything else to signify yourself as a business. If you file an LLC, you're going to get more personal protection, but no tax benefits with just an LLC. Most freelancers are going to operate just fine as a sole proprietor or as an LLC. So talk to somebody about it. See if there have been like filing an LLC. It's not that difficult in Illinois. It's something you can do. You know, there's a filing fee. You can do it online. You can have somebody help you draft the paperwork, like the articles of organization. But you want to make sure like there's a benefit to doing this. Down the road, you may make more money. And this is when you really want to have that CPA at your side. You want to tell your CPA when you start your business too, hey, tell me when I'm surpassing things where I need to think differently about my business. It wasn't until my accountant came to me and said, here are the thousands of dollars you would have saved last year if you had been an S Corp. Please consider becoming an S Corp. And I was like, I had no idea, right? So as your business grows, continue these conversations with the professional people in your life who have this expertise, but don't worry about like doing that right away, because something like an S Corp has additional costs, additional administrative things. You have to payroll yourself. There's more complexity to it, but there are certain points like phases your business may pass through where you go, yep, it's time for me to take on this additional responsibility because the tax or other benefits are substantial. So next you need to define your services. Who will you help? Do not say everyone. Do not say my service is every small business owner in the world. You need to try to narrow it down a little bit. You can still provide services to a broad range of people and not commit to one specific niche, but there are benefits to narrowing it down. So when I have some podcast episodes about to niche or not to niche that I recommend you try Googling and checking out, because I'll talk about the pros and cons of being really specific versus being more of a generalist. But you need to narrow in a little bit, either by the type of project you'll do, the type of client, or both. And that will help you start to see what things you like doing. As a new freelancer, you won't know what you do and don't like doing until you do it. I started off, I would write blogs for anybody. I had a lot of pest control clients. I probably wrote 50 blogs about bed bug management. And then I was like, this is not my passion. Like, it was a great experience to learn that this is not the thing for the rest of my life that I want to be branded as. So get some experience and don't hold yourself to like, this is the be all end all. You can do a project. You can even start with a freelance skill where you're like, I am going to go all in on web design. And then you have 2 clients and you're like, I actually don't really like this, but I love the graphic part of it. You can pivot, right? There's no point at which you're like locked into doing a certain thing. So who will you help? How will your work help them? This is the #1 mistake new freelancers make. They talk about what they do and why they're awesome, and they don't connect it to why that means anything for the client. So a virtual assistant might say, I save you time. I keep you organized. I give you peace of mind so you don't have to worry about what's next on your schedule or the details of your upcoming trip. Those are the things that clients connect with. A lot of my clients are lawyers who do not have the time to do digital marketing. So my pitch to them is about not just saving them time, but doing it with accuracy, making sure it's valid for their state's laws and rules, and just taking that pressure off of them. So everything you do, yes, it's a service you provide, but 100% your clients care about what that service does for them. They like you as a person and all that, but there's something about this relationship where they're getting more than just the deliverable, right? So how will you find and serve these clients? Where are they coming from? What's your marketing plan? Can you claim a business on LinkedIn or set up a Facebook page? I put these as possible questions because some people don't want their employer to know they're side hustling, and that's a legit concern. So if your employer watches your LinkedIn and is like not cool with you doing something on the side, maybe don't use that as a marketing method, right? But if you can, or if you're not connected to anyone at your job on LinkedIn, these are things where you could start making small steps towards that side hustle. The next step is to create marketing materials, which is your pitch, your work samples, or your references, and your marketing plan. This is all about how are you going to get clients. So a pitch, I use a template pitch still to this day, but it talks about what I do and how that serves my clients. And then I will swap in different personalized things based on what I know about the client, or if it's coming to me as a referral. I always add additional material, but I just use the same, like, here's what I do, here's what the process looks like, here's what it could look like time commitment or cost wise. And then your base pricing, this is again something that will change over time. What I encourage people to start with is to do some research. Go on Upwork.com, which is the biggest freelance job board site. Do research of other freelancers' profiles. What is their hourly rate? Is your experience in line with theirs? You may find like an average hourly rate, like maybe as a proofreader, you're like, the average beginner rate seems to be around $30 an hour or something like that. But then you go, but I also have this like proofreading certificate, or I have a master's in English. And so use those things you know about yourself to raise your rate more, right? Like you're not just locked into the average. If you have special things in your background, use that to come up with your base pricing. You can always change your pricing. This is again why it's best to start with small one-time jobs with clients, because you don't know if you like it or not yet. And you also don't want to like sign a year-long contract for someone at $20 an hour and then realize you vastly underpriced yourself or something like that. So where do you actually find freelance job leads? Upwork.com is a good one for beginners, but it is very, it can be challenging to get on. Most clients in the world know about Upwork, so that's a big benefit for it. That's where they go first to post their job leads, but there's also a lot of competition. That's where I got my start, my first couple of clients, and I built my freelance reputation on Upwork. I'll share a resource with you at the end. That's my like best advice. If you're totally new on Upwork, and like one of the things I recommend is if you get on the site, they have to like approve your profile and make sure there's enough demand for whatever service you offer. Look for what I call our fast, cheap, and easy jobs. These are things like I saw one today. It was like Purdue University researchers wanted people to fill out a survey. They were only going to get paid $5, but I was like, this is perfect. Like you could do this in 10 minutes. You could get a 5-star rating from this client and you can use that to build your portfolio. So look for something like, don't look for the defining freelance role of your life. Look for something short and sweet that you can complete and get good feedback on. There are also industry specific job boards. So a couple of the ones that I use, All Things Freelance Writing sends me a list of 20 freelance writing gigs every week. Pro Blogger, there's one specific to every industry that you can sign up for, either free or paid. So do some research, just pick your service area and see what's out there. My favorite to start with is LinkedIn and your personal network on Facebook, because these people already know you and trust you. So if you can do it, right, if you're not going to aggravate things with an existing employer, I like to post like something on maybe on your Facebook, like, hey, you all may not know, I just started a resume writing business. If you're looking for a refresh resume, I'm offering discount prices for my first 3 clients. My expertise is in blah, blah, and blah industry. Would anyone be willing to give me a chance? And you have much better of a chance of getting that first client from someone in your own personal network, especially if you're offering something like proofreading or, you know, something where it's more accessible, more people may need to hire that. And then you're going to market. I tell new freelancers 10 pitches or 10 marketing hours a week minimum, more if you can do them, because it just takes a while to get your first client. And it's also the first question I ask when I get on calls with freelancers that are like, I've been pitching and I have no clients. I'm always like, how many pitches have you sent? And it's usually like, well, I sent 3 and I don't have any clients yet. I'm like, keep going until you hit 40 or 50. And when we're at 40 and 50 and it's not working, then there's something wrong with your pitch. But it's very normal to have to just keep doing it, putting yourself out there, because you're unknown and this is new and you haven't figured out your sweet spot of what to say yet. So if you are not fully booked, whatever that looks like for you, if you have 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week, keep going until you are at whatever point you want to be at with fully booked. And then don't give up until you hit your new goal. So you set that goal, it was either hours or number of clients or money that you want, just keep going. My first year, I kept a legal pad with me at all times. And I was tracking what clients I had received, what money was coming in. And I would total that all the time because my first goal was $1,000 a month. I'd be like, man, I'm only at 700. Okay, I got to get out there today. I'm going to get out there like it's the middle of June. This is a great opportunity for me to get out there and get that last $300. I'm not marketing enough, right? So do something that helps hold you accountable and keep that momentum going. And then 2 resources I will leave up here. These should both just open right on Google. You don't have to sign up for anything. You should just be able to download these PDFs. So the first is the top 24 most profitable freelance side hustles. And then the second one is the Insider's Guide to Getting Started on Upwork. So if you wanted to, I recommend checking out Upwork regardless, because it's a great way to see how clients talk about the work they need done. And then you can also do a lot of research on your competition and see where you may be able to edge them out or how they're charging, how they talk about the work that they do, and just some tips for getting approved on the site and kind of landing your first gig. But I will leave plenty of time for questions of if anyone has specific things about a side hustle they're thinking about or something like that. I'm happy to chat about it.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura. Do we have any questions or comments from anybody attending remotely or from our in-person participants?
I can't,
Oh,
Sorry.
go for it.
I'm sorry, I can't read the slides you have up there. It's blurry for me.
Oh, let's see. Do you want me to
I
I
can-
copy it in the chat? What's it, how? what's it
I'm trying to
difference?
figure out the best way to do that.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to email me
Yeah,
your,
Yeah.
what you used today?
Yeah, I can send you my whole slide deck.
yeah, yeah. And if that's something that, you have posted online too, we're gonna post this video on YouTube. And so I can also include a link to any materials that Laura can
Okay,
provide
yeah, perfect.
that way too. But Therese, I'll send those your way, okay?
Okay, thank you. I
Yeah.
just put my email in the chat in case, but
And I will-
Let's see. And I had a question from Nikki here too. And I'll give you just a second on that.
No, yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, she
You're
said,
fine.
I am interested to hear her perspective on how AI is impacting freelancing relating to writing, editing, proofreading.
So it's definitely an ongoing conversation. I think the biggest challenge right now is that clients think that it's the fix to all of their problems. And so one of the things that I have done, like my client where I'm their fractional CMO, I said, let's do half your blogs AI written, half of them human copywriter written, and let's track it over 6 months and see how they perform on Google, because I don't think the generic AI ones are going to perform as well. I also just wrote an article for entrepreneur.com where I had a copywriter write my bio for my personal about page and ChatGPT write it. And then I tore down why ChatGPT's version was crap, basically. And why I don't recommend that small business owners outsource their website content specifically. However, my husband, who's a huge Terminator fan, would, as he says to me all the time, is AI keeps learning faster and faster and faster and faster, which is true. So it's something to be mindful of. And what I tell freelancers is to look for the edge that you can have over AI. Like AI cannot fully discuss the human experience. Like it can pull together things that are out there on the internet about the human experience, but it can't really explain the challenges and the things that we go through like as humans. So look for those things where you can add a little bit extra to it, where you think you could go beyond it. I also think it's a valuable tool that can speed up your work. So like, for example, sometimes I don't want it, like one of my clients said, can you come up with 50 taglines for a business litigation practice? And I was like, whoa, I can come up with like 10, and then that's going to be like the stretch of it. So I use ChatGPT to give me some additional words, like, okay, I can play on that word. So sometimes you can use it to help you. I will say right now is a time where clients and people are testing it, but are not 100% bought in. And you can also look at clients that will never probably fully buy into that. Like A lawyer is not going to have that write their whole website. An academic is not going to have Chat GPT or any other service proofread the final copy of their journal article before they send it out. So look for people who are more willing to compromise or not willing to compromise on those certain things where they want humans. So it's definitely a challenge. I think it can be used to writers' benefits. I'm also recommending that a lot of freelancers diversify their skills. So for example, like if you do ad copy, it's not that big of a stretch to learn Facebook ads yourself. Now you've got a 2-in-1 service. Hey, I'll write your ad copy, I'll hire a graphic designer to make your ads, and I'll manage the ads on Facebook. So diversifying and going into things where you're a multiple in one service could be beneficial, but it's definitely an issue that's out there right now. And I think is just something to be mindful of, thinking like, how can I go beyond what the AI tools currently offer? What personal touch can I offer, or what industry can I work in where people would be hesitant about fully using AI? And we're kind of like still seeing how that one plays out.
And I agree, it is a tool, and I think for the bulk of the population, like that's what it needs to be used at.
Yeah.
And, you know, and confidently, it's
Yeah.
not something to be
Oh yeah.
afraid of in that regard. It can really, you know, help us still, you know, offer a very human product.
Yeah,
or
like
service.
even though like there's so many tools out there, right? Like Grammarly or other things that can proof my stuff. I 100% am still going to pay the $3,000 to a human editor for my book before it goes to publication. Like there's just no question. So there's certain things where it's like, if you can talk about why it matters so much, what is the difference that you provide? Like one of the things I do for my clients now too is I will listen to their customer interviews, or I will interview their CEO and infuse that back into the blog, right? So I want to make sure that your case study or your blog or your email newsletter has your thought leadership in it. It's not just AI, it's not just Chat GPT. Let's make this as personal to your company as possible, is another kind of way to like add that personalized service that just kind of, you can still use AI to speed your own stuff up, or maybe like scan through that transcript of your meeting with the CEO. But I still think like as of right now, most people still want to work with humans, at least as a final pass, if not well before that.
And we're social creatures.
Yeah, yeah.
Kristen, you had a question.
Yeah, I had a general just side hustle question. I have a lot of people coming in asking about drop shipping. What do you think about drop shipping?
Well, it's another, I was like, where does this one fit in the 4 categories? Because it's like hard physical products, kind of, but more like digital stuff with Amazon. I think the drop shippers do an amazing job marketing.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Is there's a lot of YouTube ads, a lot of Facebook ads. It's in my mind, it's very similar to things like Uber in that almost anyone can do it. And it scares me like whenever there's something that my neighbor could learn in 5 seconds and also do, because it's like, well, then if we're all doing it, the price is coming down and the demand. So what I encourage people to do is to like really, really look into something and start something else first. Get those skills where you can actually evaluate, like, is this something I want to do? Or maybe you're like, let me try one product on it.
Yes.
Let's just see how one goes and see if I even like it, if I want to deal with this. There are people out there who are making money with it, but it's one of those things where it's all like, I'm not gonna say it's saturated, but like there's just a lot of people doing it, and it's dangerous to be. I always get nervous about businesses where you need to purchase a bunch or spend a bunch up front, and then hopefully you make it back later. And it's like that. I would rather start with something where let me just test it. I'm gonna try one thing, see how it goes. If it works, review and look for like the most scathing review you can find, just to see like, is this person legit? Because some people make more money selling you courses about how to make money than they do in the actual business.
Absolutely.
So you want to learn from somebody who's doing the thing, or has only stopped doing it in the last year or something like that, right? So really vet who you're learning from and what claims they're making.
Right, so where are they getting all this time to
Yeah, they have this like giant empire of like daily TikToks and weekly YouTubes, and I'm like, you're spending at least 10-20 hours a week on this selling me drop shipping business, you know, I'm dubious, yeah.
But absolutely share the same views, and I tell this, I advise all the time, like, if everyone's doing it, who's making the money, you know?
Yeah, it's a very good point. So do your research, like pros and cons, and try to match things up to your personality too. Like what kind of a business do you want? Like I'm mostly an introvert, so I like the idea of writing and I communicate with my clients like just enough, but it's like that suits me because I can set my own schedule and I don't have to be like on all the time. And so look at your own personality too, like what suits you. Are you a super detail oriented person? You know, try to match that with whatever side hustle
You
you
can
can.
do a lot of freelance with music and stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, anybody else before we head on to the rest of our days? Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you so much, Laura, for sharing
Yeah.
your knowledge and passion, and I always just feel so energized after your
Oh, good.
program. So,
Good.
yeah, this will be posted on YouTube, and yeah, please keep an eye on our social media for announcements for upcoming Lunch and Learn to Innovate Springfield, and have an awesome day, everybody.